Good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very special segment today on the 19th day of October 2022. And Brisbane is a cloudy day today, but the temperature is still up, so it's 22 degrees and cloudy in Queensland. Right now in Brisbane, for that matter. Well, right now let's get on with the news. So what do we have for you today? We have this daily news update and we'll have the daily India report together with the upcoming functions and events. Then at 10 a.m. we'll have the weekly real estate update with Usha Chandra. So stay tuned. Right now, let's get on with the news. Well, of course, Uncle Jack Charles, he has been farewelled with a state funeral, and so he should.
His farewell began with tradition. But for many, Uncle Jack Charles was known and loved for pushing boundaries.
He was never afraid to waggle the finger, stamp his foot and point the bone.
Uncle Jack also leaves a massive impact on each and every one of us, and we were lucky enough to have known him.
A stolen generation survivor, he overcame abuse, trauma and addiction.
Uncle Jack was a lighthouse of love that never stopped shining. His ability to lift up those around him was unlike anything I've ever seen.
Referred to as the father of Indigenous theatre,
Your black skin soft as velvet shine.
the Bunurong, Woiwurrung, Djadjaburrung and Yorta Yorta man used his platform to make an impact.
Through tragedy, he created art, and through art, he created a powerful voice for change.
Today's service highlighting his advocacy for all. The funeral was streamed into prisons across Victoria to acknowledge his work in the justice system.
And it was through his example that he inspired hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
A fitting send-off as Uncle Jack travels home to the dreaming. Isabella Tolhurst, ABC News, Melbourne.
And what a moving service there for Uncle Charles. Well, right now, let's take a look at the flood situation, which is a little bit concerning.
I guess even a little bit further upstream at Barmer and the Lower Moira has an evacuate immediately message out this morning on the Murray River as those peaks start to head towards Echuca, where, as you say, we're expecting it to start to reach major flood level from today, but start to peak Thursday into Friday, in particular around Echuca, and a lot of effort going in there to protect people, but an evacuation message is out for members of the Echuca community.
Okay, how bad could the flooding get at this stage, based on the latest information you have?
Look, the flooding in and around from Barmer all the way to Echuca is going to be at levels that we haven't seen for some decades, and so we're really asking the members of the public to consider the need to move now. Those evacuation warnings, we don't issue them lightly. We are asking people to move at least to their relief centres and the like, as we are expecting that flooding to peak in that area in the coming days. And then further downstream, we've got the community of Kerrang, where we're expecting the Loddon River to bring major flooding into that community overnight tonight into Thursday and peaking after that.
In Echuca, the last indication you gave a day or so ago was as the result of the rising waters, up to 2,000 properties could be affected. Have you got an update on that?
Yeah, that's still what we're understanding from our flood analysts at this point in time, is that between 1,000 to 2,000 properties will experience some level of flooding, whether that's flooding on their property and to a lesser number that will see flooding potentially above floor, but a lot of mitigation work's going in there to try and reduce that number as best we can.
Regarding that mitigation work, and full props to all of your colleagues at the SES, the Army, people here, local residents, both here in Moama and Echuca. But in Echuca, as you'd know, that 2.5 kilometre levee is being built, which is going to ideally preserve a lot of the city, preserve the CBD, but sadly there are properties on the wrong side of the levee that won't be protected. Residents there are pretty annoyed. What do you say to them?
Look, I guess unfortunately in all of these events we have scenarios where the water pressure is going to be on some communities, and whether it's Echuca, whether it's the low-lying areas of the Loddon as it heads towards Kerrang, as we've seen in and around Rochester on the Campaspe on the way up to Echuca. Unfortunately, there's just some areas that we cannot mitigate against these floodwaters that are reaching record levels.
Now let's talk about Rochester, the town just to the south of Echuca, really suffering from floods over the last few days up to the last week. Another flood warning approaching, is that correct?
At this stage, it's still a current flood warning. Really, the waters there are only just receding very, very slowly at Rochester. A massive clean-up effort ahead, but we do have the Defence Force supporting us there with our relief and recovery agencies. Our emergency services are still in there as well. But yeah, it's still going to be a long road ahead for Rochester community in that area.
Going to be a long road ahead for the community there. So let's take a look at how are the farmers coping up with all this.
On the floodplains of northern Victoria, water stretches as far as the eye can see. But beneath the water, destruction. Thousands of hectares of grain crops damaged or destroyed.
We sort of estimate the area impacted by the weather we've seen would probably account for around 20 million tonnes.
Brett Hosking is a grower at Quambatook and the chair of Grain Growers Limited. He's hopeful only 5% of the area affected will be lost.
Our growers have felt the same cost of living pressures that every Australian's felt. Our solution to that was to grow a big crop.
The water has also cut off dairy farms across the state. And because the tankers can't get there, tens of thousands of litres of milk is going down the drain.
Saturday they couldn't get in here and it went to, some of it went down the drain. But overall we're probably 13 or 15,000 litres that they couldn't collect.
It's bad news for farmers, but also for consumers.
We know that the price of basic groceries and food will go up and Australians will find it that much tougher when they're already under the pump.
And with crops yet to be harvested and livestock still giving birth, farmers are in a precarious position.
Being that they're babies, they're pretty vulnerable to everything, so this wet weather and, you know, now that we lost our calf shed, calves aren't in ideal conditions, so, you know, the disease risk to them is fairly high as well.
With another rain event on the way, the fear is that this could only be the beginning for farmers across the state's north, many of whom who are already stretched to their limits. Luke Radford, ABC News, Dingy.
We know timing is very, very important, and when those warnings are issued, people should really be acting on that. I know many times people say, no, it will be okay, she'll be all right, mate, but no, she's not going to be right. So, you know, if the warnings are put in place, you need to move and evacuate now. Well, Mawana Maya praises the community amid the floods. He said the spirits are high.
The frustration we have is that we're having trouble getting accurate estimates of where it's actually going to end. The levels that we've been getting vary from 95 metres to 95.9 metres, which is a fair difference, and it'll make a big difference in terms of how many houses would be under threat, how many would be flooded and so on. We know that there's a good levee around the major part of Moama, which should protect us from that higher level, but for those that are outside the levee, it's a bit of a lottery. I myself am defending my house, which is outside the levee, so I'm a bit concerned about that. But there's no doubt that whichever levee it ends up at, it's going to be significant flooding, the worst we've seen for many, many years.
Okay, and how many potentially houses and properties could that affect if the worst case scenario is realised?
Oh, hundreds and hundreds of houses, particularly on the eastern side of Moama, but increasingly, if the level looks like being the higher one, it'll start to encroach on houses that haven't been flooded before in living memory.
You've had that permanent levee in place for 20 or so years built after the devastating 1993 floods. This is going to be its first big test, isn't it, essentially?
Certainly, and I know in places that they're sandbagging on top of that levee, so the expectation is that it's certainly going to be tested. But there's a whole lot of development out to the west of Moama, which has taken place since that 93 flood and since the levee was put in place, and even some of those areas are going to be threatened. There's a lot of sandbagging going on out there.
Yeah, lots of sandbagging going on, including right behind us here. We've spent a fair bit of time across the river in Echuca witnessing some terrific community spirit over there. How has the community rallied together over on this side of the river?
Likewise, I mean, the Echuca Moama is really one community, and we see the impact as being widespread across the community, but the community spirit that's been evident since the emergency has arisen has spread throughout the community, and we're just so grateful for everybody who's put their hands to the pump to fill sandbags, to deliver them, to put them in place and so on.
How does that make you feel as the Mayor here?
Oh, look, very, very proud. The impact of the flood has been enormous, but the response from the community has been absolutely outstanding.
And isn't that wonderful? That's what Australians are for, mates, for standing by, mates, and that camaraderie, everyone standing by, really does make the Mayor very proud of the area, even though they are in the midst of a crisis at the moment. Well, right now, let's take a look at the job seeker situation. It stagnates despite rising cost of living.
This is all part of the daily routine for job seeker recipient Lee in Adelaide. He lives with type 2 diabetes and tests his blood glucose levels twice a day. This is not a number he wants to see.
Today I got 16.4, which is very high. I would like it below 10.
Lee's grocery bill has nearly doubled since the beginning of the pandemic to $180 a fortnight. But even that amount isn't enough to buy the kind of food he should be eating.
Because I can only afford the cheaper food, it's really bad for my diabetes.
Lee relies on a $334 per week job seeker payment. That's way below the $616 per week Henderson poverty line. Job seeker is increased twice a year, tied to the Consumer Price Index. Advocates say the CPI fails to keep up with cost of living increases for things like food and housing, categories in which low-income households spend the most.
You are stuck on this very, very low payment, which is not keeping up with the cost of living.
Social Services Minister Amanda Rishworth said in a statement the government recognizes that people on job seeker are doing it tough. She said the upcoming budget will be about difficult decisions in difficult times. At Adelaide's
Difficult decisions in difficult times, times are difficult, and in difficult times, where do you draw the line as well? So, people are doing it tough. Times are tough. Right across the board, may you be on job seeker, are you a small business owner, or you are the independent contractor. Many people are out there doing it very, very tough at the moment. Well, another tough news is that let's now go to Northern Territory, where the businesses are fed up with crime calls and they're calling on Labor to do better.
A united front with a message for those who make the rules.
That anger in this town is becoming a volcano. If they don't do something, it's going to spill over.
Like many businesses in Darwin, we're sick of it. We've been ram-raided, we've been trashed, we've had things stolen.
Angry after a recent break-in at her Palmerston business, Donna Roos put out the call for others facing similar woes to rally together for change.
And the whole point of this and getting some attention is to hopefully get all businesses in the Northern Territory together and let's get something happening.
In Katherine last night, senseless damage to the town's arts centre, its 7th break-in this year. While in Alice Springs, the federal opposition leader put the boot into Labor for recently abolishing the cashless welfare card.
It's beyond me why, for ideological reasons and to try and please people in Sydney and Melbourne, they would abolish the card that was effective, and with its abolition we will see a spike in crime, unfortunately.
Another recent Labor law facing heat from opponents is the NT government's move to raise the age of criminal responsibility from 10 to 12. The Chief Minister today stood by that decision.
These changes will ensure that young people are held to account and are responsible for their behaviour, but at the same time we stop that cycle that can start if a young person comes into contact with the justice system.
The NT opposition leader says if her party wins government in 2024, the CLP will put the criminal age back to 10 years old as a priority. Matt Garrick, ABC News.
The crime and the theft, the petty theft, are up on the increase, and one of the areas of great concern is these days people get a lot of things online. So people order things online, they get delivered, and if you're not there to receive the delivery, you may be going out on the nature school. You could be in the toilet while the guy rings the bell and it's missed it. He leaves it on the door and goes. You come back and you receive a message to say your order's been delivered. You go to the door, it's not there. What do you do? So that's happening a lot, and in big complexes, there are notices now in the mail collection area that the centre management will not take responsibility for any lost parcels, because when they are unable to contact the people, the recipients, they just leave it there and take a photo to say it's delivered, and off they go, and things are missing. So in one of the buildings that we have our offices in, there have been writings that there has been a lot of letterbox thefts, that people who have got access there, and because it's common area for everyone with that key, swipe key access, and they take other people's goods. So, all this kind of things happening, and there are many cages, storage cages that have been broken into lately right here in the CBD. So all these kind of thefts are still happening, and of course, Crime Stoppers are busy with many other more important things than petty theft. But what do we do? Well, right now, let's move on and go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. United Nations Secretary General is on a 3-day visit to India to hold discussions on steps to deepen India's engagement with the United Nations. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is on a 3-day visit to India from October 18th through 20th. This will be his first since he began his second term in January. The Ministry of External Affairs said Guterres will commence his India visit by paying tribute to the victims of the 26/11 terror attacks at the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in Mumbai. He will then address the Indian Institute of Technology on India at 75 UN-India Partnership Strengthening South-South Cooperation. Guterres will also hold bilateral discussions with External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on issues of global concern, steps to deepen India's engagement with the UN, including through India's upcoming presidency of the G20 and reformed multilateralism. On the final day of his visit, Guterres will be in Kevadia in Gujarat state, where he will join Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the launch of the Mission Life booklet, logo and tagline. While in Kevadia, Guterres will also pay floral tribute at the Statue of Unity and visit the country's first solar-powered village in Modhera. The Indian External Affairs Ministry said that Guterres will also be visiting the Sun Temple in Modhera before departing for his onward destination. The UN Chief's visit to India comes as the country hosts 2 meetings of the UN Security Council Counter-Terrorism Committee in Delhi and Mumbai metros on October 28th and 29th. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud has been appointed as the next Chief Justice of India by President Draupadi Murmu. Indian President Draupadi Murmu appointed Justice D.Y. Chandrachud as the 50th Chief Justice of India on October 17th. Justice Chandrachud will take oath on November 9th, a day after incumbent CJI Justice Uday Umesh Lalit demits office on attaining the age of 65. Indian Law Minister Kiren Rijiju tweeted, quote, "In exercise of the power conferred by the Constitution of India, Honorable President appoints Dr. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, Judge, Supreme Court as the Chief Justice of India with effect from 9th November 2022. End quote. While Justice Lalit has a brief tenure of 74 days, Justice Chandrachud will serve as the CJI for 2 years. He will demit office on November 10th, 2024. Justice Chandrachud, presently the senior-most Supreme Court judge after Justice Lalit, was elevated to the Supreme Court on May 13, 2016. Indian tourist hotspots Hampi and Khajuraho are among 5 sites to host G20 meetings during India's presidency. As part of India's G20 presidency between December 2022 and November 2023, the Modi government is planning to host 5 key meetings focusing on the culture track at Khajuraho, Bhubaneswar, Hampi and Agra. These cities have been chosen mainly for well-known monuments and UNESCO World Heritage sites such as the Taj Mahal and Agra Fort in Uttar Pradesh state, the Hindu and Jain temples of Khajuraho, the Konark Sun Temple around 65 kilometers from Bhubaneswar, and the sites at Hampi. Agra is expected to host 2 of the 5 meetings. The Indian government had announced in September 2022 that there will be 215 meetings in all, spread across 55 sites, covering most states during India's G20 presidency. The main summit will be held in September at Delhi's International Exhibition cum Convention Centre at Pragati Maidan, which is presently under construction and will be ready by mid-2023. For the culture track, a G20 secretariat has been set up in the Ministry of Culture, which will hire a professional agency for research, documentation and coordination work for the G20 work stream of culture. Besides the 5 meetings, around 250 cultural events will be held on the sidelines for delegates for the duration of the G20 presidency. During the G20 presidency starting December 1st this year, India will invite Bangladesh, Egypt, Mauritius, the Netherlands, Nigeria, Oman, Singapore, Spain and the UAE as guest countries. India has launched its first all-aluminium freight rail rakes developed indigenously. Indian Minister for Railways Ashwini Vaishnaw on October 16 launched India's first all-aluminium freight rail rakes that have been developed by Hindalco. The aluminium rakes will modernize freight transportation and enable large carbon savings for Indian Railways. The rakes are 180 tons lighter than existing steel rakes, can carry 5 to 10% more payload and consume less energy with relatively negligible wear and tear to rolling stock and rails. Minister Vaishnaw flagged off a 61-wagon rake from Bhubaneswar station. These wagons will carry coal for Hindalco's Aditya smelter in Lapanga, Odisha. He said the wagons say 14,500 tons of carbon dioxide emissions, have more carrying capacity, consume less energy and are corrosion resistant. They are 100% recyclable and even after 30 years they will be as good as new. These aluminium wagons will enable India to achieve its climate goals. The bottom discharge aluminium freight wagon, specifically designed to carry coal, is tipped to reduce the carbon footprint measurably. With the railways planning to deploy more than 100,000 wagons in the coming years, the potential annual carbon dioxide reduction could be to the tune of over 2.5 million tons. Indian stocks rose for the second straight day on 18th October. BSE Sensex was up 450 points in early deals and the NSE Nifty touched the 17,450 mark on positive global cues. After seesawing in the past weeks just ahead of the Indian Hindu New Year festival of Diwali, India's equity benchmark index, the BSE Sensex, has gained nearly 1,200 points in the first 2 days of trading. On October 17th, Sensex rose 491 points and on October 18th another 700 points. Fueled by positive global cues, listed companies on Bombay Stock Exchange reportedly gained nearly $2.7 billion in market capitalization. UK's new Chancellor of the Exchequer has reversed policy and will bring in higher taxes. UK, US and Japanese and Asian markets all rose nearly 1 to 1.5%. India saw foreign institutional investors slowing down on outflow while Indian investors pumped money into the market. Meanwhile, the Indian rupee gained 22 paise to stand at 82.08 against the US dollar. Indian cricket team won a last over thriller against host Australia in a warm-up game to the World Cup T20. After its heroics in the Test match series down under last time, Team India once again ruled at the Gabba as it defeated Australia in a warm-up game before they head into the Super 12 round of the T20 World Cup 2022. The warm-up game had all the ingredients of being a cracker of a game and it delivered. The intensity at its highest throughout, KL gave a blistering start and Sky and Kohli capitalized. Australia made a good comeback to restrict India to 186 for 7. In the chase, Australia were watchful, but Marsh and Finch teed off at the close of the power play and helped Australia to a comfortable position in the chase, but India fought back with the wickets with Kohli producing 2 stunning efforts in the field, a direct hit and a one-handed stunner in the deep. But it was Mohammad Shami who stole the show with the terrific last over, giving away 4 runs with 4 wickets when Australia needed 11 off 6 balls. Bollywood film Drishyam was a success. Producers are hopeful that the sequel titled Drishyam 2, starring Ajay Devgan in the lead role, will be another hit at the box office. Trailer of this upcoming suspense drama has just been released.
दुश्मन को हराने का मौका अक्सर दुश्मन आपको खुद देता है।
पूरे शहर में ये बात फैल रही है कि विजय बाबू ने बॉडी वही छिपाई है।
सर। आज तक दिल और दिमाग के बीच मैंने हमेशा अपने दिमाग की सुनी। आज भी वही करूँगा।
Bollywood superstar Ajay Devgan's Drishyam 2 trailer was launched in Goa on October 17th. Ajay, Tabbu and Akshay Khanna were all present at the event. The film is a sequel to Nishikant Kamat's hit thriller from 2017. It was also a remake of the Malayalam hit by the same name starring Mohanlal. The trailer opens with Ajay Devgan's Vijay Salgaonkar saying his family is still being hounded for Sam's disappearance after 7 years. The case, it seems, is still open. It is Akshay Khanna who is the investigating officer and he is out to catch Vijay's lie. But they face the same hurdle, evidence. In comes Tabbu, the former IG and mother of Sam, who won't underestimate this fourth fail, unpurred again. Ajay will reprise one of his most intriguing characters on screen and continue in Vijay's shoes in the sequel. The story unveils a journey that leaves the audience thinking about what might be his way out this time. Helmed by Abhishek Pathak, the film also stars Ishita Datta, Akshay Khanna, Rajat Kapoor and Shriya Saran in the lead roles and is all set to hit the theatres on November 18, 2022. The Hindi version, headlined by Ajay, was a remake of 2013's Malayalam movie of the same name, starring Mohanlal as the lead. Bollywood star Ayushmann Khurrana has wooed his fans with a fabulous performance as a gynecologist in his latest flick, Dr. G, according to critics. Living up to the buzz of all Ayushmann Khurrana films, his latest Dr. G opened well at the box office, bagging 8.5 crores in just 2 days. The story of the film is of a reluctant gynecologist, Uday Gupta, played by Ayushmann Khurrana, who is a medical student living in Bhopal with his mother Shobha. Thanks to Uday's low marks, he cannot get into his favorite stream, orthopedics. He asked to opt for gynecology. Uday begins his course and he is the only male in his batch. He gets into a tiff with his batchmates and the head of the department, Dr. Nandini Srivastav, played by Shefali Shah, who detests him for not being passionate about the course. He slowly gets interested in the course and becomes a close friend of Fatima, Rakul Preet Singh, who is also in the same batch. Saurav Bharat and Vishal Vagh's story is decent, though it does give a deja vu of films like Munna Bhai MBBS and Three Idiots. The screenplay is better in the second half once the message of the film comes to the fore. Ayushmann Khurrana is in his element in the film. This is a film which is right up his alley and he does a fabulous job. He especially shines in the emotional scenes in the second half. Rakul Preet Singh looks beautiful and gives a fair performance. Anubhuti Kashyap's direction is decent and the debutant director handles certain scenes very well. Overall, Dr. G works due to the message, performances and impactful second half, but a weak first half, limited buzz and unjustified adults-only rating will impact the film's box office prospects to a large extent. That's all for this bulletin of the Daily India Report.
And thank you very much, Ankita, for that Daily India report today. Well, of course, the cricket team is right here at the Gabba, and what's happening with that? We need to know all the functions and events that are taking place in Brisbane. So right now, let's go and take a look at some of those. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment. It's been wonderful having your company as usual. So good to see you all. Don't forget that our next presentation is the weekly real estate update with Usha Chandra of GlobeNet Realty coming up your way at 10 a.m. Until then, it's goodbye from him. We'll be left to see you there.